Good morning. Can we all take our seats, please? I know. No, because then when Steve gets over here, he's going to be like... Okay. Our first order of business this morning is we need to elect a moderator. I am the moderator at the moment. I am the clerk for the school, Terry Brand, and we're going to take nominations for a moderator for today's deliberative session.
School Clerk
Pro
Brand.
tem.
School Clerk Brand, I would like to nominate Steve Perry as the moderator for the school district pro tem.
Can we get a second? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it. Steve, it's yours.
Now you gotta adjust the mic. Hello, everybody. How's everybody doing today? Okay, so first order of business, the meeting was already called to order, so I will welcome you to Litchfield School Deliberative Session. My name is Steve Perry. I am serving as your moderator pro tem for today. I live at 5 Liston Lane with my wife Catherine for the past 23 years. We have a daughter Hannah and a son Nathan. Both of them have gone through the school system and now off to college. That's enough about me. Could everybody please join me and stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, so just a few short things here. Before we commence our meeting, in consideration of warrants, there are several housekeeping matters we need to discuss first. State law prohibits smoking on school grounds. Restrooms are located just past the auditorium. When you go out the doors, down there to the right. Emergency escape exits are located in the back of the room using the doors you entered. And there's also an immediate side door to the stage and the side area where everybody's seated. Unfortunately, no food or drink is allowed in the auditorium. Special consideration has been granted for those that are on the stage. Please silence or turn off your cell phones so that we don't disturb this meeting. Also, those that are authorized to vote today may sit in the center and left sections of the auditorium and also the bottom of the right. For those that are here today, please observe this. Please move the far right seating section. So if you are a non-voter, just make sure that you are in that sea of red that's in the back corner. And then from there down, we have the right, which will be fine, just so everybody knows who's a legal voter today and who's not. We'll start off with some introductions. So first, I would like to announce the school board chair, Elizabeth McDonald. Welcome her to the stage to introduce all the members of her board.
Good morning, everyone. Thanks for taking time out of your busy day to come to the school board deliberative. The school board members, myself, Elizabeth McDonald, also known as Liz, is the school board chair. Heidi Ames is my vice chair. Tina Harrison, school board member. Andrew Cutter, school board member. And up front, we have Mike Jetty, superintendent of schools. Doug Totten, our business administrator. And Gordon Graham, our legal counsel. And Tara Hirschberger, who was unable to be with us today.
Next, the budget committee chair, John David Sun.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Good morning, everyone. John Davidson, Chair of the Budget Committee. With me today is Kate Stevens, our Vice Chair, Carrie Douglas, Derek Barca, Scott Taylor, William Hayes, Brian Burke, Robert Leary, who's our Select Board representative, and not with us is our School Board representative, Tara Hirschberger.
Okay, thank you. So now we'll go through the rules and procedure of the meeting, so sit tight, this takes a couple minutes. Litchfield is operating under what's known as the Senate Bill 2 procedures. This means that our goal today is to review, discuss, and amend, if necessary, the warrant articles that have been presented by the school board and the budget committee for our vote for official ballot on Election Day. Election Day will be March 14th, 2023, from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. down at the gymnasium here at the school. If we make no amendments to the warrant articles, then they will appear on the ballot as you see them today. If we do make amendments to these warrant articles, then they will appear on the ballot as you amended them. For this deliberative session, the moderator will read each warrant article and recognize the speaker. The moderator will then open the floor for discussion, questions, and proposal of amendments if appropriate. If a voter wishes to propose an amendment, he or she must present the moderator with a signed written draft including their complete street address. I will then review the amendment for completeness and adherence to the state law. The moderator will read the proposed amendment so that all voters may understand and afterwards seek a second for the motion. Once the motion is moved and seconded, I will recognize the sponsoring voter to present his or her motion. It is contrary to the rules of procedure to discuss a motion before it is properly moved and seconded. Index cards are available at the front, right down here with a few pens, for submitting your amendments. Note that by state law, amendments will not be in order if they change the primary subject matter of the original warrant, nor can negative motions be made to no be tallied as a yes vote. We may not have more than one amendment under consideration at one time, so please, no amendments to proposed amendments. We need to consider each proposed amendment separately. Every effort will be made to give recognition to all wishing to speak. If you want to speak, then you must come up to one of the microphones down in the front. Board members, if you are speaking as a board member discussing an article, you may remain on the stage at the opposing podium. If you are offering your own opinion or amendment as a citizen, then you are asked to please move to the floor and use one of the mics down there. When you are speaking, please clearly state your name and street address. This information aids the moderator as well as the clerk, who must take minutes for our deliberations. Any motions to end debate must be made immediately upon a voter arriving at the microphone after stating your name and address, and is not required in writing. The moderator will seek a second motion. Sorry, we'll start that again. The moderator will seek a second to the motion and will then put the question to voters. If the motion to end debate is successful by gaining a simple majority, the moderator will immediately call for a vote on the question currently under consideration. All those who speak are to keep their remarks pertinent to the motion under consideration and must hold their remarks to no longer than, we're going to say, 3 minutes. Personal attacks and profanity will not be permitted. I can't stress that enough today. All speakers will direct their remarks to me as the moderator, and in the case of questions, I will call upon the appropriate person to respond. One follow-up question will be allowed. However, a running discussion is forbidden in the interest of both time and in fairness to others who wish to speak. Please try to avoid redundancy. Proper respect and decorum will be expected at all times. According to state law, town and school district meetings are run by what's called moderator rules. This means that, as I am doing now, the moderator sets the ground rules for the conduct of the meeting. However, law also allows you, as the voters, to overturn my rulings by a simple majority vote. To overturn the moderator rulings, a voter may request a point of order overturning the moderator. Immediately after the moderator rules, the moderator will then recognize the voter, who may, if desired, explain his or her point of order. The moderator will then poll the voters, and if a majority agrees with the voter, then the moderator's ruling will be overturned. A motion to adjourn will not be accepted until all warrant articles have been discussed and finalized. A motion to table an article will not be in an order unless it is made to table until a specific time and place in today's agenda before the close of this meeting. A motion to consider an article after it is closed will not be in order unless there is no warrant under consideration and until it is seconded and approved by a simple majority vote. Reconsidered articles must be discussed and closure reached before the end of this meeting. A motion to restrict reconsideration of all previous warrants will not be in order unless there is no warrant under consideration. So it has to be done in between. It must be seconded and approved by a simple majority vote. Only those people that are on the checklist as qualified voters are permitted to vote at any time. If the moderator receives a complaint or notices a non-voter voting, then I will require the non-voter to leave the auditorium. Voters are asked to sit in the middle sections in the section directly in front of the moderator. The right is also good as long as we're down front. Non-voters are to sit to the far right and the back. As you came into the meeting today, the ballot clerks gave each registered voter a sheet of yes/no ballots. That would be the yellow sheet. These are yours to use for secret ballots if necessary. Please do not drop them on the floor or leave them behind when you leave at the close of the meeting today. Please turn them over to the moderator by leaving them on the front of the stage or on the table as you exit out back. The moderator must conduct a secret yes/no vote when 5 or more voters make a signed written request to the moderator prior to a voice, hand, standing, or division vote on an article. The moderator must also conduct a recount of secret ballot immediately after the public announcement of the vote when requested by 5 or more voters who are present, provided that the vote margin is not more than 10% of the total cast voters. The moderator must also conduct a secret yes/no ballot when 7 or more voters challenge any verbal or hand vote immediately after the vote results is declared by the moderator and for any other business has begun. This challenge can be made verbally or in writing. Remember, under our SB2 town government system, you have a secret ballot on every warrant come election day. Approval of all warrant article amendments at the deliberative session shall be a simple majority. Almost done. A voice vote will be the primary method of voting. If the moderator cannot distinguish a clear majority with a voice vote, then a vote by standing or raising hands will be taken. Over the course of the meeting, there are many opportunities to use acronyms. I ask, however, that the board and committee members who discuss an article refrain from using acronyms. It is unfair to assume that everyone knows what the acronym means. For example, throughout the day, you may hear references to an acronym RSA. This term means Revised Statutes Annotated, or simply our state laws. It is your prerogative to permit non-voters to speak at this meeting. It has been customary to allow employees, council, and non-registered residents to speak at these meetings. If you wish to continue to do so, please signify by saying yay. Yay. Any opposed, say no. The ayes have it. Let us now begin the business part of our meeting.
Mr. Moderator, can I make a request?
Sure.
Is it possible that we do all votes via the yellow sheets as opposed to by hand and by voice, to give everybody an opportunity to express themselves without
I just need that in writing, and,
one of these cards?
yep. Yeah.
I all set?
So the request is to allow all votes to be taken by the yellow ballot, secret ballot sheets. I have a motion and a second. Diane? No, we have a motion and a second. So the question that we have here is that we only take votes on amendments.
Okay,
You understand that, right? So it's
Yeah.
only for when we have to cast votes. We don't have to do it for every article if there's no amendments.
exactly. Yeah,
Okay?
yep.
We good with that? So he's saying, what
Anything
about
that you're going to ask for a vote,
from the floor? Is that good?
Question is about whether or not it's procedural votes or whether it's amendments. I mean, procedural votes are things like motions to call a question. You don't want a secret ballot on motions to call a question. You
no,
just want
on amendments. Yeah, when people have to express an opinion. Yeah,
Can you alter this to say 4 amendments? Let's make it as clear as possible. Thank you very much. It needs to be signed by 5 people? All right, so you need 5 people to sign it.
okay.
We want to make sure we take as long as possible today.
Steve?
Yeah. We're in the middle right now. We technically have to wait.
Okay.
If it's nothing pertaining to this, you can ask me,
It actually is pertaining to this.
and then you have to wait until we have it signed.
Okay.
Then I'll open it up. Thank you. Okay, so just to clarify again, this is to state, please allow all votes to be taken by the yellow ballot, secret ballot, for amendment votes only. We have a motion, we got a second on the floor. That's just required. Oh, yeah, because it's got the 5 votes. So we don't take this to a vote. We're good. Otherwise, we'd have to pass this. Okay,
So in the interest of collecting these votes, do we just tear off the little sheets and?
I will tell you which ones every time we need to. I will say which number we're
And will
using.
someone be standing here to collect them, or
Well,
do
see,
we all have to get up
See,
and
you
pass
got
them?
it. You got a little ahead of me because that was where I was going to go once we finish this.
Okay, thank you.
So all secret ballots, anytime we use this yellow sheet, I will say which number we are going to use for each individual vote. When those votes happen, I have 2 volunteers, which are Steve Weber and John Brunel, that will pass these baskets around. I request that no one else please get up. No one else touch anybody else's votes, okay? That way there, we know that they're all going to be confidential and nothing's going to be, no funny business. We good? Okay. Okay. The first thing that you'll see on the ballot is going to be the election of officers. The school has a moderator position open, which is a 3-year term. There's a school district clerk, which is a 3-year term. There's a school district treasurer, that's a 3-year term. There's a school board member, that's a 3-year term. Now, off to the good stuff. Article 1. Shall the Litchfield School District vote to raise and appropriate as an operating budget, not including appropriations by special warrant articles and other appropriations voted separately, the amounts set forth on the budget posted with the warrant or the amendment by the vote at the first session of the annual school district meeting for the purpose set forth herein totaling $25,920,238. Should this article be defeated, the default budget shall be $25,127,836. which is the same as last year with certain adjustments required by previous action of the Litchfield School District or by law. Or the school board may hold one special meeting in accordance with RSA 40:13, 10, and 16 to take up the issue of revised operating budget only. On this article, we have two speakers. The first one is Budget Committee Chair John David Sun, and we will also have School Board Vice Chair Heidi Ames.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator, and good morning again, everyone. I'd like to walk you through the Budget Committee's process as we reviewed the school district's budget this year. Beginning in November 1st and November 3rd, the Budget Committee joined school board budget review sessions, and those were an opportunity for us to hear presentations from staff, from department heads about their requested budgets. The budget was delivered to the school board and the Budget Committee by October 27th, 2022, and the total delivered general fund budget was $24,638,536. The Budget Committee then started reviewing the budget in details on November 10th, and voting on the school budget occurred from December 1st, 2022 to January 5th, 2023. Before the school board received the budget, this is the superintendent's budget, and there were changes and actions that were taken by the administration. There was a reduction of following positions, which was a total of $362,172. Those included 2 special education teachers, 2 receptionists, 1 music teacher, and 1 ELL, English language learner teacher, from a full-time 1.0 position to a 0.7 position. The school budgets compared to previous years, and these are non-personnel budgets, which means it impacts things and not people. You can see the reductions there for GMS, $3,385. For LMS, there was an increase of $353, and for CHS, there was an increase of $16,045. The CHS increases of $12,581 in vocational tuition and $7,040 in athletics, which is associated with transportation, supplies, and game officials. The total superintendent's budget that was delivered to the school board was $24,638,536. At that point, the school board began to review and take action on the budget. As they took action, they had reductions of $242,052. Those reductions included LMS supplies, district phone, salaries decrease, which was attributed to attrition, the addition of 1 severance, actual health and dental, elected benefits pool, which was an increase of $50,000, a reduction of $65,850 for GMS electric and propane, a reduction of $103,625 for CHS electric and propane, and then a music teacher position that was added back in, $94,878. When the school board finished all of their reductions, the budget that they delivered to the Budget Committee was $24,396,484. At that point, the Budget Committee began our work of voting on and reviewing the various budgets. Total reductions by the Budget Committee was $246,144. Those reductions included CHS supplies for $1,450, a district position of $82,526, CHS guidance tuition of $10,700, special education $51,800, GMS oil $33,300, elected benefits pool of $50,000, special education $51,800. That's actually a repeat. That should only be in there once. There was only 1 reduction for special education. The Gator for grounds was $8,199. GASP professional services of $4,099, and then snow services for $4,070. There was an addition that the Budget Committee made in good faith, as there was an entry mistake that was made in regards to a CHS PE teacher, and we voted to place $29,988 back in the budget. At that point, after we'd gone through our process, the Budget Committee budget was $24,180,328. When we look at the general fund, which has an increase of $820,712 compared to FY23, There were some major drivers that contributed to that. Those included energy cost, electric, oil, and propane at both GMS and CHS, the municipal lease payment at LMS, special education transportation for $107,474, all other transportation, $20,894, out-of-district tuition, $134,726, LEA increases, which was from last year's 2022 warrant article of $364,665, and the LSSA increases from last year's warrant article as well for an increase of $98,202. Those major drivers contributed to a budget increase of over $1 million, $1,051,798. One thing I'd like to point out too, as we went through and looked at the oil cost, the energy cost, one of the things that the school board was able to do was to go back and negotiate some rates and lock in some rates. There were a lot of great conversations of the budget committee, the school board, and the administration. We were able to lower those rates that came from the original budget and have some of those reductions through our budget review process. At this point, I'm going to invite Ms. Ames to come up because one of the things that's really important to understand is the budget committee is charged with the operating budget and the school board is charged with the default budget. So if you look at the middle column there, I want to summarize the operating budget as it's currently presented on the warrant article that's being presented by the budget committee. The general fund budget, which is everything that we just covered and summarized, is $24,180,328. In addition to the general fund, the school board also has additional funds that they have access to, which includes food service for $694,450, grants, which they receive from state and federal allocations of $575,000, and capital project funds, which is $470,505. When you add all of that up, the total budget is $25,920,283. The estimated tax rate on that per 1,000 is $1.22. And at this time, Ms. Ames is going to walk us through the default budget.
Thank you very much. My name is Heidi Ames. I am the vice chair of the Litchfield School Board. A big thank you to Chairman Sun for presenting this article with me, as well as for the many hours of work that he and the Budget Committee have done to get us to this point. I've been asked to start with a presentation on the default budget column, which you see there on the right side. And while I'm sure many know what a default budget is, I think it's important to understand the definition of a default budget. It is not simply the freezing of last year's budget. It has to be reduced or added based off of legal obligations. And in our proposed budget, there are 6 positions that are proposed to be either eliminated or reduced. And so therefore, the default budget has to reflect those reductions as well. So it's not simply taking last year's number and saying you get it this year. It is taking into consideration those cuts. And so with that, a significant amount of time was spent by our business administrator, Mr. Totten, to calculate these default budget numbers. These numbers were reviewed and discussed with the Budget Committee, and particularly with Vice Chair Stevens of the Budget Committee, and as well as Tara Hirschberger, who's on the Budget Committee for the school board, to try to make the default numbers as clear and transparent as possible. So looking at this slide, if the proposed operating budget for FY24 does not pass, then the default budget would be $23,858,386. That is a reduction of $321,942. These items would include textbooks, important software, changes in psychology and mental health positions, and changes in the benefits for non-union employees. Under the default budget, the food service and grants or special revenue would stay the same. However, the capital projects would be eliminated under the default budget, that $470,505. That amount is what is projected for the completion of the LMS project, which is mainly what's left is the kitchen upgrades and the remainder of the retainage. Due to supply chain issues, the equipment was purchased and is purchased. We have it, but it delayed in arriving such that it made sense to do the work during the summer months when the students are not there. Therefore, in this column, the total default budget would be $25,127,836. If Article 1 fails, this would be a reduction between the default budget and the proposed operating budget of $792,447. This would mean that the district would have to cut from its budget $792,000. In a budget where 80% of the budget is made up of personnel and benefits, there simply is no way to reduce $792,447 without reducing positions, without reducing people. While no final decisions have been made regarding where these cuts would come from, the district, with its belief of hoping for the best and planning for the worst, has started these conversations amongst the principals and the administrators who are here in the room. And these conversations have been grim, I'll be honest. They'd be pretty devastating to have these types of cuts to the district. Again, there's been no final decisions made, but it's important to understand these discussions have included larger class sizes, reductions in electives, implementation of a play to participate for all extracurricular activities, and that's just some of the ideas that have been proposed at this point. On this slide, I'd like to point out the number of positions that have been eliminated by the school district since June of 2022. I'm not going to read them all, you guys can see them, but you can see the total of these 13 positions add up to $772,025. This is what we have already reduced. Having to reduce another $792,447 would essentially require double reducing this same staff, plus more, because again, it's about 20 grand more. This cannot be done without an impact on the quality of education in our school district. Again, in a budget where 80% of the budget, the bottom line budget, is salaries and benefits. The Litchfield School District, the board has voted 5-0, which is a unanimous vote, which for anyone who's paid attention to our school board meetings this year, the unanimous vote is definitely a win for us when we're all united behind our operating budget. And the Budget Committee has also voted to support this 5-4. We are asking the Litchfield voters, we're imploring you to please think about what kind of impact the default budget would have if the operating budget that's proposed does not pass. Yeah.
Okay. Let the fun begin. Questions and comments? Ladies first.
Diane Flansky, 144 Talent Road. Can we put those numbers up again, those 772? I just have questions. If you need the money, you need the money, and I will certainly vote for that. But I have questions. Last year, our default budget came in $800,000 under budget. $300,000 of that was before you realized you were $1.5 million over budget. $300,000 of that was voted to go back to the voters. $500,000 was used to the $1.5 million error that occurred. I don't understand how a default budget that was $800,000 under budget last year could possibly have had a reason to not use that money, to not let all those positions go. I don't understand. There's that. The next thing I don't understand is why are capital projects coming into the expense portion of the budget? Capital projects are items that are depreciated over time, money that we spend to improve our assets in the town. Why is that $442,000 there? Wasn't that already part of all of the warrant articles we've already raised and paid for? Or is this another deficit that now we're putting in this budget? Those are my two questions.
I'm letting Doug do
Just,
that.
Diane, just a clarification on your first question. You were talking about the $800,000, the default from last year.
Yep.
We didn't have are you saying we were in a default last year or?
No, I'm saying that we were under the default budget, which is this year's default budget.
I got you. Okay.
Last year's current budget, we spent $800,000 less than the citizens paid for taxes and approved for a budget. So that budget was $800,000 in superfluous expenses that were explained as far as, from what I can understand watching meetings, as positions that were not filled. Yet we're getting rid of positions that were filled? I don't understand. So that really is my question.
Okay,
Is
thank you.
that clear?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Good morning, Litchfield. So it is tough to get rid of any position at a school because every position comes in and they help the students and they help the students achieve at a personal level, educationally as well as emotionally, and which is great. But as we have declining enrollment, we also want to be responsible with the taxpayers' money. So that is what started last year. So the budget last year, which included some of these reduced positions, had nothing to do with the fact that there ended up being a surplus at the end. It had to do with the fact that we were looking to take care of your money in the most responsible way. So with enrollment going down, we wanted to respond, or they wanted to respond, with positions going down as well. Again, not an easy call, but definitely something which is necessary as enrollment goes down. So enrollment has continued to go down, not as much as in some past years. So we wanted to continue to react to that. So to continue to provide a workforce which we believe can provide that teaching, that learning, but is also responsible for, the taxpayers in town as well. So these positions are mainly the result of declined enrollment and reacting to that. Does that answer that part?
Not really, since you're saying that we're going to have to cut those positions if we don't fund them with an increase for this year.
So this year is a little bit different. So that goes partly into your question about the 470 and the capital projects fund with that. So the reason the 470 is in the upfront reason why the 470 is in the operating budget and not the default budget is that what was approved by the voters last year was $4.95 million for the bond. So that difference can work its way into the default budget because it was approved by the voters of Litchfield. So the contract for North Branch and also that we're working with our architects is above that $5 million.
So unsupported, unvoted on increases.
Yep, which
Yes.
there was more expenses than revenue coming in. So that was a big part of that
So
September
what you
meeting.
asked for money, though, was not enough to pay for the project. You're $500,000 in the hole on that project, that you came to us and we approved for one amount, but now you're changing the amount by almost $500,000. Is that correct?
No, we're not changing the amount. We are continuing with that unpleasant conversation from September where because revenues did not meet expenses, we needed to transfer money. And now
Didn't we already transfer $1.5 million to that problem?
we transferred for the expenses from last year.
I am still confused. It still seems like a numbers game, but I will defer to Mr. Spencer.
So,
You're up.
Bill Spencer, 9 Cranberry Lane. First of all, I'd like to congratulate the Budget Committee and the school board. This is the best presentation I've ever seen, and I've seen a lot of them. It's already answered a lot of my questions. I do have one question, though. It was not unanimous by the Budget Committee on recommendations. I'd like to know why the folks that did not vote for it felt they should not vote for it.
Thank you, Mr. Spencer. Just one quick clarification for Mr. Totten. The LMS project that was referred to was a lease and not a bond, so I just want to make sure we clarified that. I'll invite any Budget Committee members that would like to speak to that. They're more than welcome to do so.
I'll also tell you I'm very hard of hearing, so I probably won't hear your answer.
Well, I'll make sure they speak loudly.
So I'm going to sit down while you explain it to us.
I voted against it, and I voted against it, one, because the increase in today's economy with inflation, I can't go to my neighbors and ask them to cough up another $500 on a $400,000 house, just on school. That does not factor in any warrant articles, that doesn't factor in the town. It's too much. And then, as we were discussing just now, a good chunk of that is for a GMP that we were promised would be the guaranteed maximum price, and isn't. If we need more money for the project, we should have asked. We should have said, listen, we screwed up. We didn't factor in all our expenses. The numbers were wrong. Litchfield, we need to approve a new warrant article for an additional however much it is to get the job done. So that's one reason. I don't think we should have slid it into the operating budget. I think that was the wrong way of doing it. Additionally, it ties into my opinion on the warrants that are coming up. Quite frankly, I think we should be looking at a consolidation project. I don't think this district needs 3 buildings. We just heard that we have a declining enrollment, and enrollment will continue. I think we should be looking at consolidating, and therefore I don't know that we should be investing any more money into LMS until we decide whether or not that's the spot we should consolidate at. We're going to be hearing about a piece of property coming up. I think that would be a great spot for a pre-K to 6, move 7 to 8 down here, make it a junior, senior high school. If we did something like that, putting more money into a building we could save money by closing is not a smart investment. So quite frankly, I'd like more time to just see what the school district likes to do with respect to being responsible with our taxpayer dollars, and I don't think that the operating budget is it. I fully support the default budget. I know tough decisions will need to be made, conversations will need to be had, but everybody else here is having them at the dinner table as they pay their electric bill, they pay for their heating, they pay for groceries. Good Lord, look at eggs. It's just, we're having that conversation at home, we need to have it here. And I cannot, in good faith, ask my neighbors to pay that amount just on this one warrant article. Thank you.
Good morning. I voted no because of several reasons, but a lot of it has to do with the LMS project. Last year, I asked that every year's cost to the taxpayers be included on the warrant article. I was refused. I asked, how are the people going to know what it's going to cost year 2, year 3, year 4? I was told it should go down. Going down doesn't double, all right? There's $1.5 million that they went over this year, okay? Now, they've depleted all kinds of accounts that they're going to ask you to put back in, reestablish those accounts. That shouldn't happen. You're being asked for the same tax dollars twice, okay? That's wrong. There's also the question of, you know, my position on any new positions in the town should always be voted on by the voters. The town does it as a matter of business. We're not required to. There used to be a warrant that the school had to do it, and then it was changed to advisory, which basically means forget it, okay? We cannot continue to tax the people out of this town. And as Kerry said, I figured it out at roughly $488 on a $400,000 house. That's just the operating budget if it passes, okay? It's not any of the other things. If you want to add in the others, it's going to be quite a bit more, okay? We can't sustain this kind of cost every year, okay? I'm not afraid to cut the town budgets, and I'm certainly not afraid to cut the school budgets. I'll never cut people. If they decide to cut positions, that's on them, okay? $20 million of their budget is spent on personnel. That still leaves over $5 million, all right? You've never heard the budget committee that I know of. We voted on it, but we've never voted to cut a position. Even this year, the music position, when I asked the superintendent point blank, does that mean you're going to cut somebody? And he said, probably, and I voted against it. And I think I was the 5th vote on a 4-5 vote against it. I won't cut personnel unless it's absolutely necessary, and I don't see it as necessary. There's too much other stuff in the budget. Leave the teachers, leave the kids alone. Get rid of the other stuff. Thank you.
Okay, from the Budget Committee, we should have 2 more that voted no.
don't think do we need everyone to speak, or?
Well, that's what was asked, that's why.
Oh, okay.
Sorry, I have to.
Scott Taylor, I should be up there for this one, but I'm not going to walk by the camera again. I did vote no. I'll just ask that you wait a couple minutes for my amendment, and I will be able to explain why I voted no and actually offer an option.
Okay, there's one more. They here? No? Okay, so that answers that question. So now, the next that came up. Okay, go ahead.
Mine's quick. So Pete Stone, 15 Carlisle Drive. I'm looking at these numbers for operating budget and default budget. It's 60% higher on the operating budget for just under $800,000 difference. What's the difference? What's not, what are we, either bad math or somebody's not telling us something? How do you go from 56 cents to $1.22 for
Tax impact.
a small portion of the actual budget cost there?
You're referring to the tax.
So you're referring to the tax impact on the
Operating
bottom?
budget 122, default budget 56 cents.
Yeah, so Mr. Totten, correct me if I am wrong, I did happen to print out this sheet. It would be $14 total, so this is the increase. This isn't the total tax. So the increase would be $1.22, which raises the total amount per thousand for the school to $14 on the operating budget, and it would be $13.35, is that what it was? On the default budget. So you're just seeing the increases looks like a double, but it's, the total amount is not double.
Okay. All right.
Does that answer your question?
Not really, but I guess I
And-
need the formulas to figure it out.
And so part of that has to do with, if you look at this particular slide here, the fact that the default does not have that $470,000 for the capital projects, as well as there's a reduction of 300 and,
But that's just a plus up on existing, right?
say that again? Sorry.
It's just an addition to our initial, standing cost right now, I guess.
Yes.
Right,
correct.
okay. All right, well, that makes sense. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Ralph Bohm, 6 Gibson Drive. Just pretty much a statement. Does everybody know how much they are paying in their property taxes per week? And a lot of people don't even know what their taxes are because it's in their escrow and it's part of their mortgage payment. But I would suggest everybody look at your total tax bill for the year, divide it by 52, and that's how much your taxes are a week. And they're ranging from $100 to $300 a week, depending on your house. Now, is that too much, or is that not enough? So those are the questions, those are what you should do, a little homework, to see if this is feasible or not. Thank you.
Matt Shoemaker, 20 Greenwich Road. I'm just curious if anyone could speak to enrollment projections. I know that we've highlighted 2 years of declines, but looking forward, before we start making decisions about, like Carrie proposed, just curious what the enrollment projections are going to look like.
I don't have those in front of me. I believe the projections are declining for future years, but Mr. Totten, I think, quickly pulled up the spreadsheet for us.
Okay, so this year, our actual, I'm not quite sure if it's exactly now, but is 1,206 total students. Next year, we're projecting to have 1,164 total students. The following year, 1,120, and 25-26, the following year from that, 1,097. So again, going from 1,206 to 1,164, 1,120, 1,097 projections.
Mr. Moderator, I'd like to propose an amendment, please.
Sure. You gotta state your name, address, just to make sure.
Scott Taylor, 6 Lilac Court.
You think I got good eyes?
I can make it easy for you. All you have to do is take the operating budget and reduce that by 300,000. All the other words on there are exactly the same as Article 1.
All the other words are exactly the same.
Yes.
So your motion is to reduce the operating budget of Article 1 by $300,000.
Correct, which would thus decrease the tax impact on the opposite side to 98 cents from $1.22.
So that would reduce the operating budget down to $25,620,283.
That is correct.
I have a motion. Do I have a second? I have a motion and a second. Okay.
Thank you very much. So in this particular situation, unfortunately, we are stuck with financial errors that have been made that caused a special meeting in September, and now at this point, another issue where all of a sudden the default budget is catastrophic. That should have been seen as well when making the decision as far as how to fund the LMS project. So as we take a look at, from the school board and the district administration, we're in this situation. There's nothing we can do as far as going back in time to fix those particular assumptions and the subsequent errors from there. Unfortunately, the consequences fall on two groups: teachers and students, taxpayers. My amendment is just asking that we reduce the operating budget by $300,000 to help close the gap so that when a voter goes into the booth, the school board can look at it and say, I'm willing to roll the dice and hope that the $1.22 increase gets included, but you're going to end up with the risk of the default budget, which, as we heard, would be catastrophic. This would at least give some of the consequences to the school district, some of the consequences to the taxpayer, to help meet part way. Thank you.
Okay, questions or comments about the amendment? We got somebody behind you.
Jim Norton, 24 Woodhawk Way. The $300,000 that Scott is proposing, what does that look like for jobs and teachers' cuts?
Again, what we were talking about with the default budget still applies with, instead of closing a gap of 792,000, we're trying to close a gap of 300,000. And unfortunately, in a budget where 80% is personnel, I can't stress that enough. That is the major driver of the school district budget, is people, as it should be. But I don't see that we can get to 300,000 without having some kind of impact on our personnel. And that would just be the reality of the situation.
So one of the reasons we showed a slide that talked about the increases in non-personnel at the high school, middle school, and elementary school was to show you that they were reacting to try to keep a lean budget this year, even during inflation. So that's another reason why when we say, like, if there is a reduction, it's mainly personnel, because the schools have already done a good job for a couple of years now of being lean in their non-personnel cost. So 300,000, would be between, it'd be around 4 teachers roughly, or, teachers and assistants to kind of make that up. So each teacher can roughly be around 80,000 as you kind of work up to that 300,000. Not that we wouldn't necessarily weigh other things too, whether that be, pay to participate in things, or whether that be, reducing by a bus route or something like that. But, it would include some type of combination of that.
I just want to briefly respond to that one more time and show, and I want to get to that. These major drivers, I would like to remind folks, these are little to no control of the district. The voters approved the LEA contract last year. That has to be a part of our budget this year. The LSSA increases, those were approved by the voters last year. Those have to be, we don't have a choice. And so when you look at these $1 million and then say that we are actually only looking in the first line to increase the FY24 general fund by $820,000, I think that shows that we have tightened the belt. We aren't asking for the $1 million, we're asking for less than that because we've made cuts elsewhere already. And so what I need folks to understand is that if we're asked to then cut another 300,000 from that, it just can't be done, and the question was on impact to personnel, it just can't be done without that, at least some impact. I can't say it would be as devastating as the 792.
Diane
Go ahead.
Plinsky, 144 Talent Road. I really do thank you all. This is like an enigma wrapped in, I mean, it's so confusing, all of the numbers that go along with this stuff. And I've dug as much as I can to understand as much as I can. But when I'm hearing his $300,000, but I'm looking at, I mean, sometimes you guys don't make sense to me at all. I'm looking at the Article 3 transfer from fund balance, Article 4 transfer from fund balance, and Article 5 transfer from fund balance. So this is money that you would take if you went under budget. So you're hoping that you will, and you're thinking that you can, and that's $350,000 that you're already asking for. This is where I go, your numbers just don't make sense to me, folks.
And my response to that would be, if we did not include those warrant articles and there happened to be an underspend, we can't do anything with it.
But you
We're
have.
not,
But
we're not
you
anticipating, we are not anticipating, and I can say this clearly, that we are going to be able to comply and make all of the full amount of those deposits into those 3 warrant articles. What we're saying is, if by a miracle there happens to be an underspend this year, we would take from that underspend and put those money into 3, 4, and 5. But if there isn't, then there will not be any money put in there.
So last year,
Okay,
though,
hold on a second. This isn't about having heated discussion back and forth.
No,
This
no,
is
but I
about a
still have
general discussion.
questions.
All communications is supposed to come through me.
Oh, okay.
And the reason for that is it actually helps keep things a little more calm,
okay.
okay?
I understand what is being said here, but that's not what happened last year. Last year, when they were $800,000 under budget, under the budget that they were given, they gave $300,000 back to the voters, and they kept 5 to start with. So obviously, they can do it without these warrant articles, so I'm not sure why they're there.
Well, we're not on the next warrant articles. We're still on warrant
There's
article 1.
still the same amount of money
No.
that he's talking about.
I understand where you're
Okay,
going,
okay.
but we're on warrant article number 1.
Okay,
We need to focus on that.
well, I'm kind of talking about his
We're on the
amendment.
amendment to warrant article number 1.
Yes, and so my conversation is to the amendment where his amount is being questioned. And my amount is, why is that the same amount as this, what they hope will be underspent from the budget?
Okay.
So,
So I'm going to speak as a budget committee member here. Ultimately, the question here is, do you think $1.22 will pass in town? If yes, vote against the amendment. If you think that there's a good chance that people might balk at that amount, I would vote in favor of the amendment to give yourself a better shot of getting not the default budget. That's what it comes down to. If it's $1.22 and if taxpayer sees a number on that ballot that exceeds $1, are they likely to vote yes, or are they likely to vote no? Which number do you think will provide the school with the money necessary, that they say is necessary to meet their needs? Because I can tell you, if it's $1.22 and people in this room feel that way, you may end up with the other vote. So it's a strategic vote. Which one do you think is going to be the one that is more likely to pass?
Mr. Spencer was first.
I move the question.
Question has been moved, so we're going to call this to a vote. This is the amendment only, okay? The amendment is to decrease the operating budget by $300,000. We are going to use our yellow sheet. We are going to use the top left of our yellow sheet, which is ballot 1. You will mark yes if you would like to approve the amendment. You will mark no if you do not want to approve the amendment. Please stay seated. The baskets will be passed around, and I'll double check at the end that everyone's vote has been tallied. Number 1. Terry, Rebecca? All right, I'll let them know. We'll let them know after, as soon as it's done.
Right.
Has everyone handed in their yellow slip number 1? Going once? Going twice? Okay. Okay, everyone. All right, so we have the results. To the amendment for the reduction of 300,000 to warrant Article 1 fails. 42 yes, 49 no. So with that, it's still as written. Any further questions or comments?
Peter Plansky, 144 Talent Road. I would like to further amend the article to remove the last couple lines, everything after Litchfield School District or by law, semicolon, and remove the school board may hold one special town meeting in accordance with RSA 40:13X and, or 10 and 16.
I am being told that that language is prescribed by statute, so we can't do that.
You don't automatically get a second bite at the apple, right? This is part of the request, is to get a second bite at the apple? Part of which statute? Is it part of the request for the operating budget?
Just for the record, this is counsel for the school.
Yep, I'm aware.
No, it's part of the statutory language for the adoption of a operating budget in a Senate Bill 2 district. So the legislature prescribes all of that language. This isn't a by choice. That's
So every warrant article related to the school has this language in it?
every warrant article for a Senate Bill 2 district has that language.
Okay.
Any, or town, Senate Bill 2 community. That's the statutory language. It's not, that's the way it works.
Okay. Well, that's disappointing, or unfortunate.
Ralph Bohm, State Rep, just to clarify that further, this is why, when we set laws, we put specific language in so it can't be changed. And the idea behind this is the default was never supposed to be higher than the operating budget. If you can read the language, that's why. The problem comes out if we go for the default. It allows the school district to hold another special meeting with adjusted numbers, maybe bringing them down a little, with the default staying the same. So in other words, the school district, the school board can vote, hey, let's have another special meeting, hold one special meeting, and come up with new numbers. So it won't be a big disaster, for example, that they think it's going to be, but I don't think it's going to be. But it's by law that that language is set specifically for that. Thank you.
Robin Corbio, 4 Nesmith Court. I apologize ahead of time. This may not be the appropriate time to ask this question, but it's where I kind of thought it fit. If the worst case scenario happens and the default budget is passed, and the other warrant articles that they were talking about, the overspend, if there's any money at the end of this year, does that money if those pass, does that money have to go in there, or is it a choice? Could it be? I guess my concern is if the default passes and all of those pass, there's no even buffer to try to save the most vital positions or the most vital programs, because all of the end of year funds are gone. Are they gone, or is it a choice that it could be used to fund those accounts, or does it have to be used to fund those accounts?
Robin, I believe your question is, if the default is in place and all of the warrant articles passed, could the money that's allocated towards those warrant articles go to offset the difference between the operating and the default? That's not what you're asking.
No. So if, the first part is exactly right, but if the end of this year, say we're under budget by $500,000, a miracle happens, right? And I know, right? That money has to go into those accounts. It cannot be used to buy paper ahead, buy supplies ahead, buy whatever to try to give us a little bit more in the default to save a critical something that we've taken out.
Yeah.
There's stuff we just can't do without. So that was those warrant articles, if they pass.
This question came up last week on the town side as well, and if warrant articles are approved, then those monies have to be spent as it says in those warrant articles.
Okay.
Yeah, go ahead.
The only thing I wanted to add that is if those warrant articles fail, that money will then be returned to the taxpayer at the end of the year because we are not allowed to retain any funds into the next fiscal year. So we would, if by some miracle there was $500,000 at the end of this year, we would not be able to apply that towards next year's budget. Am I right on
Not
that?
applying it towards
or
purchase ahead to offset. So that, say you had $5,000 for paper, and you had $5,000 left at the end of the year. Buy all that paper ahead, right? And that gives you $5,000 for something critical. I just
Right.
wanted to make, I didn't know, just clarity on how those warrant articles are written.
Do you want to? Sorry, I didn't understand the.
I want to make sure I'm saying this correctly, but I believe the board continues to retain authority to decide year-end fund balances, and so that certainly would be something we would assess.
They do, okay.
Correct? Doug can do it, okay. Let's make sure it's right.
Yeah.
Sorry, Doug.
Some kind of in-between comments here. So the school board does hold the right to vote to encumber money towards the use of next year. Now, always when that's done, we want that done in a clear way because the goal of raising money and appropriating money for a year is to be used towards those students that year.
Absolutely.
And that's what the auditors are looking to do. But lots of schools, including Litchfield, sometimes encumber money to offset expenses for the next
Absolutely.
year.
So they'd still have that authority, even if we pass all those other warrants to fill those coffers.
Let me just confer on the, because
Yeah,
there's a certain order that the extra money happens, so.
Sorry.
At the risk of making this more complicated, don't forget, budgets are two-sided. You've got revenues and you've got expenditures or appropriations. The school board only has the authority and the district has the authority only to spend up to the bottom line of the budget, which is the appropriations.
Yep.
If they get more revenue in from a variety of sources, that would go automatically back to fund balance at the end of the year. They can't spend that, but they can expend anything that they under-expend out of the appropriations that they make from last year.
Even if those articles pass.
That's correct.
Perfect.
Because and that's your point. Your point was good. It's the order in which things happen.
Okay.
You got to get to the fiscal year and the end of the fiscal year and actually have an audit to tell you what your surplus is
Perfect.
before any of that money goes into any of those next funds.
Perfect.
Which fund does it go in first?
Which fund does it go in first?
Because it's required.
It would go in the order that it appears in the warrant. Okay?
Okay, no, that's, the order is great. I just wanted to make sure that they had until July 1st.
No. Oh, before it gets.
Yeah, what happens first? Does the warrant articles happen or does it
No. Until you get to the end of the fiscal year, the board has the discretion to spend up to the bottom line of the budget,
Any way that they want to.
any way they want to.
Perfect.
Then year ends. All encumbrances and everything are paid for. The next order of business is to determine whether there was an unassigned fund balance
Perfect.
before it goes back to taxes. The unassigned, the Articles 2, 3, and 4, or 5, whatever it is, 3, 4, and 5? 3, 4, and 5 go to, they assign a portion of fund balance that's determined at the end of the year.
On June 30th or whatever. that is.
Correct.
Perfect.
But, all right?
Thank you for answering that question. I apologize. I know it's a little out of order.
No, I actually think it clarified things, once we got the real answers. I think so. Go ahead.
Hi, Neil Gasper, 1 Evergreen Circle. I have a question on the math. Something's not adding up correctly here. The increase, so $1.22 versus, operating budget versus default budget, $1.22 versus 56 cents. That's an increase of about 120%, so 2.2 times. But yeah, so our taxes are gonna, oh, what happened?
Oh, sorry, I was trying to get to the,
Right there. So that's an increase of the taxpayers for, say, $200 to $400, or $450 if you, depending on the valuation of a home or property. So why is that a 2.2 times factor that our taxes would be going up versus if you look at the difference between 25.9 and change versus 25.1 and change, that's only a 3% increase. So why that, you would, on a simple level, you would say, I know this is overly simplistic, but everybody's taxes would be going up by 3%, because you're asking for a 3% difference there between those two numbers. But yet, our increase is not 3%, it's 120% almost.
So the 56 cents and the $1.22, those are the increase over FY '23. So for,
I know, so you're going relative to that. I'm saying, don't go relative to that. Look at the 122 relative to the 0.56. Just look at that. Forget about anything in the past. You don't need to complicate any of the math, right? Go ahead.
Go.
Go for it.
Easy explanations are welcome.
There's a difference between the operating budget and the default budget.
Correct.
That's, and I'm doing my math on, and I'll show you how bad, about 800,000, about 700 some odd thousand dollars.
Seven and change, yeah.
$700,000
Yep.
in the town of Litchfield
Yep.
is the difference between 122 and 56 cents. Am I correct, Budget Committee members? You all agree with me? You know exactly what I'm saying. So let me say that again.
Okay.
700 and some odd thousand dollars
Yeah.
is the difference in the tax rate. It's the, again, I'm doing my math,
So you're
70
taking,
cents,
you're
68
taking all
cents?
of, you're taking all of the taxpayers.
No.
What,
Yeah, right, $700,000, if you add it to a budget, the town or the school district
Right,
or
right.
whatever, if you
I got
increase a
that.
budget by $700,000, it's gonna be 80
I
cents
got
on the
that. So
70
what-
cents on the tax
I
rate.
got that. Next question, though, is that what you're telling me is that the number of taxpayers in the town would have to be increased by, that amount there to make up that difference, that $700,000. How many taxpayers do we have in the town?
it's property taxes, so it's
Yeah.
properties.
I know, but who pays those property taxes, you guys? The
Whoever the bill
taxpayer.
goes out to.
So the taxpayers, right? So you have X number of taxpayers in the town, correct?
Just for clarification, maybe what's missing is what amount difference the default is over the last year's budget, because that number gets divided by the town's assessment. Every year, the town has some level of evaluation. The town includes a number of the town-wide evaluation. The delta between last year's budget and the default budget will give you a number. That's an additional amount we have to raise. That is then divided by the town-wide evaluation, and that's how you come up with the 56 cents. So then you get the proposed budget, which is going to be some order higher. Well, that number, also divided by the town-wide evaluation, gets you the tax rate. So you do need last year's budget, because it's the difference between what we raised last year versus what we would need to raise this year for the default budget, what we would need to raise this year for the operating budget. It's not by taxpayers, it's by town-wide value. Muddier, clearer?
Well, you're saying it's not by taxpayers, but it's the taxpayers that are voting on this, right? In terms of what their increase is gonna be.
Yes, so when I go into the tax booth, I know the value of my house. I get to pick A or B. Do I want to pay 56 cents per thousand more, or $1.22 per thousand more? Same number of voters, it's just how are we divvying up, or how much are we apportioning to the town?
So ballpark figures are the taxpayers are gonna be voting between, say, a $250 increase in their taxes versus a $500 increase in their taxes.
Well, roughly,
Ballpark.
sure, because
Ballpark.
it's almost half, sure.
Yeah.
So yes, there's going to be an increase. How big can your budget absorb? Well, what are you willing to pay, is
Yep.
really what it comes down to.
All right, in the interest of moving this along, we have someone behind you. We're
I
not
just-
supposed to have rolling discussion, which is what we're doing.
Well, no, it was a
So if you'd like
clarifying
to ask one
discussion.
more
Yeah,
pointed question,
just
that's
One
fine.
more question, which was, why was there a policy decision, if you can bring up where all of those numbers were and there was a 0 in one column? And a 400 and something thousand dollars, that one right there, that one. So the capital projects, so the operating versus the default, I think anybody can see that. You wouldn't have to get rid of as many people if you got rid of that 470 out of, that would be about 4 people you wouldn't have to get rid of. So why was the decision made to put that in and get rid of 4 extra people in the district versus getting rid of that and leaving that at 0?
So the decision was made, this was a conversation about, and part of the September meeting earlier, to be transparent about what the cost will be remaining for the LMS project. And so we included that 470,000 in there because there is remaining work. We are under contract right now with North Branch, and we have a guaranteed maximum price through September to get that work completed. Now, that contract's been in place almost a year, and if we elect not to finish that work and not to use the 470,000, we have the equipment already, number one, and number two, we would then have to enter into another contract, which would likely be dramatically higher than the current contract. Our price has held throughout this, even though it has taken longer than expected.
Okay, so that was an explicit decision, though, to fold that in and get rid of, say, 4 extra individuals.
What we heard from the taxpayers clearly in September is we want transparency. We want to know what these numbers are. This is that answer to that.
Okay, we need to move on.
Kathleen Falls, 8 Mike Lane. So I guess I just have 2 things. One is, I know it was said that, we have $5 other million in the budget that we can cut and not cut things that affect the kids. But I would love to hear what are those things, because the reality is, to me, and maybe I'm wrong, but that's our electric bill to run the 3 schools. That is our water bill to run the 3 schools. We can't cut that. That is septic work. Yeah, I'm sure there's a few things, but cutting crayons and cutting pencils is not going to make up $780,000. And so to me, it would seem like we are going to have to cut programs, athletics, positions to make up that much money. And how does that not impact students? So that's my first question, because I would like to know where in that $5 million that there is really that much money that we can cut out without impacting students.
Okay, let's stay there, and let's get the answer to that.
Okay.
So I believe that question was to Mr. Leary. He was
Yes.
the one who indicated
Or anyone
the
who...
$5 million.
Anyone who feels like that's a reasonable approach.
Not being in the room when they're deciding where they're going to spend and when they're going to cut and where they're going to cut, we wouldn't have the answers to that question. I just merely stated that this is the amount they spend on people. This is the amount that they have left over when that is done, okay? There is money laying around. They absorbed $1.5 million this year, okay? They absorbed that into their budget for the overspend on LMS. We were promised, that was a fixed cost. The cost was fixed, yet it came in $1.5 million over. It's over again this year. There is money, but they're choosing to proceed with projects, okay? That's why people are gonna have to get cut.
So.
But I don't know as far
second
as
question.
crayons go, I don't know what's spent on crayons. We don't see all that stuff. See, a lot of this could have been headed off last year when budget committee members were asking for the ledgers for the LMS project, and they were refused. We were asking as early as May.
Okay.
Do you want to stop him from back and forth
The answer
conversation?
was made to the question that was presented, so now ask your second question.
Okay, so my other question is, it sounds like, and I get, a lot of us are upset that there was an under budget, overspend, however you want to put it, about LMS. And, people want heads to roll, but at some point, if we're going to work together, we kind of have to move forward. And right now, it sounds like it's a lot of, I'm going to bite off my nose to spite my face. So I want to take out this. So I want to take out this LMS project because I'm mad that they didn't give us the ledgers. And so, but what are we going to do? We have buildings that need to be fixed. We have a kitchen that needs to be replaced. We have the equipment there, so we're going to not fund it to save our positions and then leave the kitchen not functioning safely or well or however, because I'm not in there, but Darlene can speak to that. And take the items that we have spent and just leave them in a closet. That doesn't seem like that's fiscally responsible either. So it seems like to me that we should be moving forward and kind of make the building better, accept the fact that we have to figure out how to monitor those budget lines a little bit more closely. But at the same time, let's not turn around and make a bad situation worse and end up wasting money because we didn't want to fix the problem.
Hi, Ronald Blinis, 15 Riverview Circle. Pretty much to the same point. I know there's been much discussion. The $470,000 on the capital projects. My question is twofold. When capital projects are approved or somehow authorized to go forward, is the full funding for those projects identified and authorized at some point? And specifically for this project, was that amount authorized and identified?
So for things to work out well, which the town has discovered, it should have been authorized. A full revenue should have been known what was needed to match the full expenses. And that was what was disclosed at the September meeting, that did not happen. And that will also be coming back in the audit as a flag against the school district for not matching revenue with expenses. Everything definitely would have been easier if revenues were matched with expenses. The thought that kind of went against that was that the thought was that you could chip away at the extra expenses with fund balance year to year, and you could carry a negative balance in the capital projects fund. That is not allowed, and that is what kind of came up at that September meeting, and that is also what's kind of still bringing us to this point now. So as what's been stated, the guaranteed maximum price from North Branch, which is the general construction, which is the majority of the dollar amount for the project, has not gone up. It just we never had enough revenue to match the expense. What has gone up is part of the North Branch contract, which is, for contingencies or things which once they went into the building and they discovered that above the ceiling tiles, the electrical wires aren't hung right. So they can't close back up the ceiling until they hang the electrical wires correctly. So there have been parts that have gone up, but not part of what was expected to do the work. There has been some increases to the architecture fees because the project continued on longer than expected. But yes, everything would have been easier if we had matched revenue with expenses a couple years ago.
Second question?
Yeah, so I guess I understand the dilemma and the error and how it occurred. What I don't understand then is in the default budget, that amount is zeroed out in the default budget. So does the default budget automatically assume then that that project stops? Or does the default budget allow the school committee to move forward with a capital project and have to cut employees to pay for it?
So the reason why it is zero in the default budget, because as Ms. Ames read the definition of default budget, it is by obligations or contracts which are voted on by the legislative body, which in this case is the people of Litchfield. So Litchfield never had that full revenue to approve, and therefore there is that gap between what they approved as far as the municipal lease and the total amount for the project. So that is why it cannot be included in the default budget. We can only include things in the default budget which the legislative have approved. That's why in the default budget, there are such things as the raises for the teacher and the support staff, because that was warrant articles from last year, which were approved by the voters of Litchfield. Now, at the end, when we get a final number, it is up to the school board to decide where that final number is going to be spent for that year. So whether that final number be the default budget, or whether it be the operating budget, or whether it be something that gets motioned either direction, it's the final number gets to be decided by the school board how that gets spent.
Just a point of clarification then. My question is, does the school board then get to choose whether to spend the $470,000 to finish the project and then make all those reductions in employee reductions? Or if we went to the default budget that does not have that there, does that mean then that the capital project doesn't move forward?
It means that the school board has some very difficult decisions to make. If the proposed operating budget does not pass and we are left with the default, we have to make decisions as to whether or not to complete the project, keeping in mind we already have the equipment for it, keeping in mind we have a guaranteed maximum price through September. We have to take those into consideration, as well as the needs of the district. And so yes, the school board will have some very, very difficult decisions to make, working with the administrative team.
Okay, moving on. Next question.
April Weber, 38 Charles Bancroft. I was just wondering if someone could clarify what the grants are?
You read my mind, April, thank you. So if you notice in the default, both food service and grants are the same as they are in the operating budget. That's because they have offsetting revenues for them. So the grants are going to be federal dollars, IDEA dollars, special ed that come, and we have revenues that come into the district, and then we expend those funds out. The same on the food service side, where revenues come in, dollars go out. And that's why they're not zeroed out on the default side. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, and I have another one too. We have several positions that aren't filled within the district. What's happening with that money? It has to be at least $1 million or so, right?
Yeah, we have several positions and we are still hiring. So I know we're getting later on in the school year, but if anyone is interested in becoming an assistant, please apply. We would love to have you. So it's a great school system. We got great kids. It's a good place to be for 7 or so hours a day. So what's happening with that money is twofold. So one is that I don't think anybody really understood the amount that energy costs would go up this year. So when people budgeted, again, we budget many months before even the school year starts. So that money is going towards that difference, and that money is also going towards the difference between, again, what we're spending for the middle school project. Now, if I was listening to this as a person, I would expect that, you know, if people talk about like 1.5 million last year and 470,000 going towards the capital project next year, that this year is somewhere in between that, and that's not the case. So this year is the amount that we'll have to spend that's not municipal lease money towards the capital project will be less than 470,000. So, but the money's going towards mainly energy costs because that increases, and then the bit that we'll have to pick up to match the expenses. And again, more specifically, it's going towards the architect fees, mechanical architect fees that are going on as the LMS project develops this year.
Thank you.
Okay, sir.
Jamie Reynolds, 12 Brandy Circle. Just looking for some clarification on a comment you had made when you were talking about the increases in the budget for the capital project. You had said something like the wires were discovered that it was discovered that they weren't hung correctly, so we had to have those rehung, which increased charges. I hire a contractor for my house and he doesn't do something correctly, he fixes it at his cost. Is nobody questioning these charges?
So again, the contractor that we have now is not the same contractor that did the work 20, 30, 40 years ago. We can't go back and talk with that contractor because it's been a decent amount of time. So, but the contractor now, as you would want them to do, they would want to make things code compliant now. And things could have been different code compliant back then. So it could have passed the compliancy back then, but would not pass now. So as soon as they open it up, though, they need to make it code compliant.
Okay, follow up on that then. When we have the project done, does our own building inspector check it?
Our building inspector's been part of the process, been walked around several times, and is in pretty good communication. I don't know if it's weekly communication, but it talks with the superintendent of the project on a regular basis. So our building inspector has definitely been part of the process.
Okay, thank you.
All right, Ronald Bladers again. I'd like to make an amendment. The amendment would be to Article 1, to remove the capital project of $470,503 and require a request to put that capital cost to vote by warrant article.
All right, so what we have here is it says amend to remove capital project or of $470,503 and require request to put capital cost to complete to vote by warrant. So, in short, you're trying to reduce warrant Article 1, the operating budget, by $470,503.
Correct.
Correct? Could you please rewrite it that way?
No, because I want it stipulated, excuse me, I want it stipulated that that capital project be eliminated from the budget, and that it be put to vote by the town to authorize the capital expenditures versus an operating budget.
So I'm just going to speak on my opinion here. The capital project is inside the budget. You're not being asked what to remove or add. All you can do to amend is the dollar number.
Mr. Moderator, can I add something as well?
Sure.
So one important item is, even if this were a motion that passed, there's no guarantee that the school board would have to remove the capital project because it's a bottom line budget. They could still choose to find those funds elsewhere and continue with the project. So even though that is the intent of the motion,
Yeah.
it's a bottom line budget and the school board owns that, has the discretion of how to spend those funds.
So, yes, if you would like this to go through, you need to rewrite it to state that you want to remove the $470,503, I believe it was, that you got written here. You would need to write that as a reduction to warrant Article 1. You don't get to stipulate what gets removed, other than the dollar value.
And
So this is invalid.
Point of order. Where was the $470,000 that's in the budget originally authorized?
You're up.
It hasn't been authorized yet. That's where we're here tonight, and then on the voting day, that's when it would be authorized or not authorized.
No, point of order again. This is for a capital project that was voted somewhere along the lines, is that correct?
So this is to fund the capital projects, but to break out the funds is a decision made by BAs. So some BAs
By who?
by business administrators like myself. Not every business administrator would break out from the general fund, capital projects fund, or even the grants fund. They can keep it all together, and that's why at the end of the day, it all goes into what's called the operating fund. So it's broken out a lot of times for greater transparency. But it's the same thing as each of those funds make up the operating fund, whether you kind of break them out or whether you don't break them out, it's still the operating fund.
So to clarify, you do have to change this in order to state the reduction of that amount of money, but you can't stipulate where it comes from. So this is invalid. If you choose to rewrite it, that's the way it needs to be.
Mr. Moderator, can I have a point of clarification with respect to whether any warrant articles can be added at this point?
They cannot. They cannot.
So if that 470,000, the first part of his motion is removed, we cannot then create a sixth warrant article to put it back in as a capital projects warrant, correct? Okay, it's just 470,000 would be gone. Okay.
As a response to that, though, I believe our contract has an escape clause because it's a lease and not a bond. So would they be able to submit a warrant article for next year, obviously accounting any escalated costs? So I don't know that it takes the idea off the table. You just can't put the warrant article this year.
Okay, so for clarification, we have an amendment that is before us to Article 1 to reduce the amount by $470,500, and I believe that's
It
three.
should be 5, I'm sorry. I misread.
5?
Yeah.
505. Do I have a second? Yes. I have a motion and a second. Discussion about this amendment.
Can I speak to it a little further?
Yes.
What we've heard is that if we choose the default budget, there's 780,000, or, I'm sorry, 792 maybe, $1,000 that has to be reduced from the budget. And the inference that I heard was that that will all come out of teachers and employees and out of what I would traditionally call an operating budget. There was no discussion about the opportunity to actually stop continuation of expenditures of at least 470,000, and I'm hearing that that might even go over. I recognize capital projects are important and they need to potentially be done, but if I had to choose between finishing something that we don't have money for or cutting employees, then I would actually stop and come back to the voters and ask for money to finish it, even though it may cost us more money in the end. A mistake's been made, but what I'm hearing you suggest is that our choice is to approve the operating budget with the capital project in it, or accept the default budget, and you will respond by cutting all employees and going forward with the capital project. Thank you.
Okay.
Hi, Jim Norton, 24 Woodhawk Way. If this amendment goes through with the 470,505, does that mean the project goes away, or does that mean it is up to the school board to decide where the money comes
It
from?
is
and
only a
jobs can be-
reduction of the budget.
So
It is
if
up
that
to the school.
reduction-
It is then up to the school board to decide what gets cut.
So jobs can still be lost?
Yes.
Thank you.
So I can speak on the amendment, right?
We're only talking about the amendment right now,
Okay,
yes.
so I don't see how we can reduce the budget, because I think we've seen what is done in this town, is that we're all about the capital projects and less about the teachers and the projects for the schools, for the kids. So I don't think that we can accept that. But I do want to strongly ask our BA, our business administrator, not to put future capital projects in here. I understand why you did this one, but I think it's a big mistake to stop, to accept a full budget that has capital projects in it, rather than going forward, continuing to do warrant articles that the people can look at and say, do they think that they can afford that? Do they think that we need this? As opposed to putting them in there. That kind of made me nervous when you said some BAs do not put capital projects out for warrant, that they just put them in the operating budget. I think it's a huge mistake. It's not the way we've operated before, and I hope that we don't make that change. But again, my big thing up here is I know what will happen. They will cut teachers.
Okay, any more questions or comments about
So just
the
to
amendment?
respond to that, 470 is a large number. A lot of times, capital projects are even more expensive than that, and I agree at that time, or for a lot of times, you would want to make sure you match the revenue beforehand with either a bond or a lease and have it as its own warrant article. So I would agree that, as we kind of look to do a whole project, that would be the case of what the direction we'd want to go.
Sir.
Corey Flint, 123 Hillcrest. My question is for the school board. just want to clarify that you fully intend on going through with the capital projects, whether this amendment passes or fails, whether we get the operating budget or the default budget.
So just to clarify, we're in an active contract, right? So either way, we have to pay this $470,000. That's just the reality, right? So it's important for us to finish the project as much as we may or may not like it. We're in a contract, we owe it. All this motion does is tie our hands and allow for us to have to make very difficult decisions.
Wasn't there an escape clause mentioned?
There is an escape clause, right? But
There's
is that responsible?
Yeah, is it responsible to spend X amount of dollars on a boat because you bought a boat and you like to have a boat, or you want to, and not have enough money to buy groceries for your family, or would you sell the boat?
I love you, but I so disagree with you on this one.
All right, we need to really,
well, no,
really stay on track. We're working on the amendment.
So my point is, the question is about the project itself. Yes, we are in a contract, but I can tell you, when there's a reduction in scope, you can still request a change order with a credit. You may not get the full freight of your change order, but you can get something back, and it can be returned later with a renewed scope. Yes, it may cost more, but again, if the question is teachers versus a kitchen, because honestly, the question is too, do you think it's going to pass F 122? The people in this room are divided. Like, I would really hate to see us in a position where we're stuck with a default budget and we're stuck with these questions. But I can't support $1.22. I might reconsider for a different number. And I sure as heck might be willing to consider adding more money to a project when we can have our arms around how much is it going to even cost at the end of the day. What we approved so much, it cost us $2 million more. We're sorry. We need a little bit more. Let's have an honest conversation, divorced from the operating budget. I agree. I think we should just.
We really need to move forward with this amendment and stop on all the other aspects. On the amendment only, please.
Well, it's related to that.
Yes.
Can I just, in that instance, Carrie, you're speaking as a resident, not as a budget committee member. If you're talking about your table or where you're buying your groceries or any of that, can I request that you come down and speak as a resident and not as a budget committee member?
As a budget committee member, I would have voted in favor of this had it not been in it.
But that
So
wasn't
as
the
a budget
question.
committee.
But that wasn't the question. So you shouldn't be going on and adding and expanding on things. Your job as a budget committee member is to answer the question alone and come down and you can expand as a resident.
I appreciate
Legit?
your opinion.
Thank you.
Okay. I really want to call this to a vote, but I want to make sure there's nobody else that has a legitimate question here about this amendment. Seeing none, we're going to bring this to a vote. We're going to use our yellow sheet. We're going to use ballot number 2, the top right, which is now, there's no top left, so it's the only one on the top. We're going to vote yes or no. The question on the floor is to reduce the budget by $470,505. If you want to reduce it, you vote yes. If you do not want to reduce it, you vote no. Yeah. Okay, if we could have everybody settle in. Wow. I'm impressed. That actually went quicker than I thought. Okay, so amendment to Article 1, which would be to remove $470,505 from the budget, the operating budget, has failed. The yeses were 22, the noes were 64. So again, we now have a budget that is still the same as was presented originally. So, with that being said, I have to make a short announcement here because it's been brought to my attention that someone left somebody their sheet. So from this point, any ballot votes, secret ballot votes, every person in this room is going to have to get out of their chair, walk up here, and hand it in themselves. So that's what we've come to, okay? Just so everybody knows, that's the next step.
Call the question, please.
There's no vote.
Call the question, please.
Thank you very much. So the question is to the article that we already, so call the question on this. So we now have this as written.
Yep.
Warrant Article 1 will be presented as written.
Mr. Moderator, may I make a motion to restrict reconsideration on Article 1?
I have a motion and a second. We have to do a vote. So now we have to do.
Sorry. Is that procedural? It just said amendments.
All right.
The motion was to call the question on Article 1.
Right.
The
So-
amendment was defeated, so back to Article 1.
Right.
So I called the question on Article 1.
Correct.
We don't vote
Now
on
you gotta
Article.
We don't
to
vote
vote.
on it. We don't vote on it.
To call the question.
Yep, you called the question. So we now have Article 1 as presented, correct?
And can we do that by a hand? Or I'll call, or however you want to do it? but
We don't
not-
have,
It's procedural, I would.
all right. So to call the question, all those registered voters, please raise your hand.
This is,
To call the question of Article 1 means close out Article 1. No more discussion on Article 1. All those in favor of calling that question, please raise your hands. It's overwhelming. Article 1 will be on the ballot as written.
Mr. Moderator, I still would like to make a motion to restrict reconsideration on Article 1.
So we have a motion to restrict reconsideration of Article 1. We have multiple seconds. We'll do this by a show of hands. All of those that want to restrict further reconsideration, please raise your hand. It's going to be overwhelming. All those opposed to that? We restrict further reconsideration.
Thank you.
Article 1 will now be on the ballot as written. It took us 2 hours to move forward on something as written. Something I forgot to do at the beginning of this meeting that I wanted to mention is we had a fire in town today, and our fire personnel is there. Our fire and safety personnel, I just want everybody to keep your best wishes for those people involved. Their job is pretty risky. I don't know the degree, I don't know where it is, I just know it happened, and I just wanted everybody to know that. So with that said, we have Article 2. Shall the Litchfield School District raise and appropriate the sum of $497,000 for the purchase of approximately 35 acres of land with no buildings or improvements thereon, shown on tax map 15, lot number 8, on the Litchfield tax maps. The parcel is also known as BL 114 Albuquerque Avenue, Litchfield, New Hampshire. And further improve the seller's condition of the sale, which is that the district will name the school to be constructed thereon Robin Riley Elementary School. This warrant article will be a special non-lapsing appropriation per RSA 32:7(6), and will not lapse until the closing on the property takes place once the construction of a new school is funded and approved by the voters, or by June 30th, 2029, whichever is sooner. If the closing does not occur, the appropriation will lapse and all funds raised will be returned to the taxpayers. On this article, we have School Board Chair Elizabeth McDonald.
Thank you. This is an outline of the parcel of land we would like to use to build a new school. It's located off of Albuquerque and directly across from the fire station. The owner of this land is Phyllis McQuestion Riley. Mrs. Riley has no interest in developing this land for housing. Her sole purpose is to have a school built to honor her daughter, Robin Riley. Let me tell you about Robin Riley Mosnica. She was the original builder and owner of the Pink House. She was a dedicated 3rd and 4th grade teacher in Salem for 28 years. She was an active member of the Litchfield community and the mother of 3 children. Robin passed away far too young. Her mother would like to memorialize her daughter by having a school named after her, the Robin Riley Elementary School. Mrs. Riley is asking for $497,000 for the land. The land appraised at $750,000. Basically, the land is $500,000 and the naming rights are $250,000. The land consists of 35 acres, 1/3 of which is wetlands, 1/3 is a steep drop-off, and 1/3 of it is buildable land. There are 10 buildable acres on this site, which is plenty of room to build a new school. This is how a new school would be positioned on that piece of land. If taxpayers have not voted to build upon this lot by June 30th of 2029, the money will be returned to the taxpayers. These last 2 slides represent the work that has been done towards a new elementary school. This work has been approved by voters for the past 3 years. However, these plans are a conversation for another day. Today, we are here to discuss the land purchase. Does anyone have any questions, comments?
Questions or comments?
Yep.
Yeah, John Latcher, 10 McElwain Drive. This money for the land can be paid through building aid money if the school is approved. So why are you asking the taxpayers for the money right now?
We haven't been approved for voters' aid. In fact, this.
Building aid. Building aid will be approved to pay for this land if the school is approved. So why are you asking the taxpayers to pay this amount of money right now?
We did not get building aid. We are, in fact, the second.
I'll let you
Okay.
go, go ahead.
You want to talk about that, Doug? Yeah. Thanks.
So the quick answer is our understanding of building aid is that it can't go towards the purchase of a land.
Yes, it can. I've researched it. It is.
So Kyle Barker, who is an architect, also who lives in the state. Kyle, and we could be wrong, so I think Kyle, do you mind? Just yes or no, can it be used towards land?
Yes, it can.
Oh, can, sorry, I apologize.
Can you come up to the microphone so everybody can hear him at home, please?
It's already been approved. You can speak.
There's certain work that can happen.
I'm sorry, please just state your name. so that we
Sure.
know who you
Kyle
are.
Barker, architect.
Thank you.
There's certain work that can be funded through the building aid program that happens ahead of receiving the building aid. So you need to vote on this to approve the expenditure, but you would get reimbursed once you get the building aid actually given to you. So at this point in time, Litchfield is ranked number 5 in the list. The first 3 will be funded this biennium, likely, and depending on what the legislature does, Litchfield could be in line to receive money, but that would be after you buy the property. Does that make sense? Is that clear?
Thank you.
Just to add to that, there's other costs such as architectural fees and other improvements that can be. There's certain other ones like the building itself that would not be funded if you do it ahead of building aid.
So, let me think here, trying to think. So why can't you just put off this, there's no rush with this land, you know, she's had it for a long time. Why can't you just wait until next year and then put the school on the ballot and do it that way?
We have other things coming up. We're going to be negotiating school contracts. There are other things that will be coming up next year. We think it's important to get this piece of land to start planning for the new building.
But this kind of reminds me of when the selectmen put the fire engine on the warrant article, but they had opera funds to pay for it in full. It kind of reminds me of that. It's kind of like you will have the money eventually, but now you want us to pay it now. So, and there's no guarantee that that money will actually go back to the taxpayers.
That assumes if we get the building aid. We are very high. The way we might be number 5, but if we did not have so many, we don't have many free and reduced lunches, and that's how they decide how much a community is in need, we would be number 2 instead of number 5.
Okay, you're in number. My notes.
So, hold on,
Can I clarify something he said? Real quick.
quickly.
Okay, John, the ARPA funds, when we received them, it was not clear whether or not it could have been used for a fire engine.
And that doesn't pertain to this article at all.
And it doesn't pertain to this article at all. But he made a statement.
Well, had you listened to me in last year,
Yep.
when I told you that 95%.
Okay, let's stop. Let's stop.
No,
Let's stop right there.
So I can respond.
Let's stop right there.
Yeah, but I can
We need
respond
to
to what he
stop,
said.
we need to stop having discussion between two individuals.
Yeah,
This is
but
a room
I-
full of people. The conversation is supposed to go through me so that you don't go bickering back and forth. That's the reason for it.
Mr. Moderator.
So I'm going to try to make sure that that happens from now on, and I'm going to continue to interrupt whoever wants to do that.
Mr. Moderator, he's the one that brought that up, so I should have a
And
chance
I
to
clarified
respond.
that does not have anything to do with this article.
Okay,
So which means it does not make a difference right now. We don't need to talk
all
about
right,
it.
okay. But I'd still like to talk, please.
I retract my comment.
Thank you. As far as your placing, as far as building aid is concerned, you guys are placed 5th, all right? And to be 5th, that also is based on some other intangibles. If I get my notes corrected here, Bob messed me all up over here. It's based on school security, unsafe conditions, obsolete or insufficient conditions, also operational deficiencies as well. So that's why you're 5th, okay?
I'd just like to step in. I'm Christina Harrison, school board member, and I've been on the Facilities Improvement Committee that the board has been doing. So what's been discussed in public at our school board meetings, to answer that most recent question, we're placed 5th, but when you remove the the points awarded to our district for free and reduced lunch, which would be an indication of the town's ability to quote-unquote afford a new building, that if we remove all of those points across the board, we rank 2nd in points awarded for safety, for life and health issues in the state. So if you remove the financial qualifications kind of points, our school ranks 2nd in the state as far as need.
Mr. Moderator, can I talk about renovations?
You can move to the back of the line. We have to address
Okay, I'll let him go
other
then.
I'd like
questions
to
first.
address,
We're talking about
I'd
land
also
right now.
like to address Mr. Latch's first question about building aid. I'd just like to respond to his question about what's the rush, if I may.
Sure, quickly, yes.
It's not a matter of rushing into this. This has been in process for over a year. We've been talking with Mrs. Riley for months on end. We've been searching for suitable properties in town. So this is by no means a rush project. One of the reasons that we have brought it to the vote put it on the ballot for this year is because in order to maintain our ranking on the school building aid list of possible awards, we need to show as a town that we are behind this project, and we have to show good faith in that this is a priority of the town. If the land purchase would basically keep us at our ranking of second or fifth, or, you know, as
moving forward in good faith.
so that we can continue to move forward. The town has already supported warrant articles, depositing funds into our capital improvements expendable trust fund for the past 3 years. Those funds are what have completed the work, or have funded the work that the architects have already done pre-bond. So our feeling is that by putting the land on the ballot, we're looking, I mean, it's kind of a testing the waters for, is the town behind this project as much as we believe it should be?
Okay, Jason, you're next.
Jason Brennan, 23 Aldrich. I just have a quick question. I should have probably asked this a couple of months ago, but why didn't we just buy this? Why the big if-then statement at the end of the warrant article? Why don't we just go for it, buy the piece of property, and be done with it? If a school doesn't get built, we could keep it vacant, we could put it in conservation, there's a lot of other things we can do with it. So just kind of curious on that.
It's up to the voters.
Well, you have
Oh,
a big
sorry.
if, you've got a big if-then statement
Well,
at the
that's-
end that says, if the school doesn't get
Oh, if
built,
they-
then
if the town
why not
doesn't
just
agree-
like buy it now? Pay her the 500, if it goes through, pay her the 500 grand, boom, we have it as an asset.
Go ahead.
So you guys have elected both the school board and the budget committee, and as a town, you guys want us working together. So as we brought this forward to the budget committee, it was one of their suggestion that it was very clear to the townspeople, if it didn't go through and it didn't become a school, that the money would go towards back to taxes. And I thought, as we all did, we thought that was a great suggestion. So we added that on. So we want to be very clear that this $497,000 can't be used for anything else. Purchase of the land, and then if the school is not bonded to be built, then that money would go back to the taxes, back to the taxpayers. And at that point, I think a different group of people would have to talk with, Mrs. Riley. So her goal is to sell the land for the school. And we're either going to meet that goal, or if this gets passed, either meet that goal or pass the money back to the taxpayers.
I can,
Do you understand?
What, was it, follow-up, was it a stipulation of the owner that she would
Yes.
only sell the school if you built
Yep.
a school
Part
on
of
it?
it-
All right,
Yeah.
there you go. Thank you.
Yes.
That answers the
Yes.
question.
It's outlaid, yeah, the value of it.
Bill's next. Mr. Spencer.
I noticed again that
Mr.
several
Spencer, could
members
you
of the
please
Budget
state your
Committee-
name
Bill
and
Spencer,
address for the
9
record?
Cranberry Lane.
Thank you.
Okay. I see three members of the Budget Committee did not vote for this. I'd like to know their reasons.
I voted against it. So I voted against it, and to speak to the earlier one, when we saw, the earlier question, when we saw it, part of the purchase and sales price assigned a value to the naming rights. So my question would have been, what happens if we don't build the building? Do we have to buy back the naming rights? So part of this would address that. If part of the cost is naming rights and we don't name it, then do we owe more money? So my understanding is helps close the loop on that question. I voted no because the agreement has 2 years for approval. As I stated earlier, I believe in a consolidation project, not in a third building itself. So I would like to see it discussed in the plan, what is exactly considered. Do we invest in a consolidation project at this site? Do we take it to LMS where we've already invested a ton of money? Just where would be a good spot? I was concerned last year that we were moving too fast and that there would be financial repercussions. I feel like I'd like to take the time, pause. We're asking a lot of money of the taxpayers. And if this purchase price is going to be honored for another year, then let's take the time, slow down, and have a good conversation of where we're going forward so we can wrap our arms around what we're looking at. So it's not a no. I mean, it's just, I need more information to make a solid decision. That's why I voted no.
Okay, next Budget Committee member that may have voted no.
I did not vote no, but I wanted to add a point of clarification. The statement there at the end that Mr. Brennan referred to was actually added by the school board after the original vote from the Budget Committee. We are going to revote that article after deliberative today. I don't know that the outcome will change, but I think it should be reflected that the people voted no, the Budget Committee members that voted no did so without that last sentence being on there at the time.
Okay.
And to answer the resident's question, Scott Taylor, Budget Committee, I voted no because of the lack of that final line. I wanted it to be very clear in terms of if things fell through, that the money would be returned to the taxpayer. I will certainly reconsider today when we vote after this meeting.
Perfect. Is there any other votes no from the Budget Committee that wish to speak?
I voted no because there's a couple of reasons. Number one is, you've heard me talk about the tax rates going through the roof. That's a major driving factor, and I am of the mindset that we have a nice little elementary school in this town, and I would like to keep it and see it renovated. You can laugh if you like. You can laugh if you like. Okay? But when Campbell High School was constructed, it was with the understanding that the $500,000 a year for that school, when that was paid off, was going to go into GMS renovations. It wasn't. It wasn't returned to the taxpayers. So there's a lot of money that's unaccounted for. Now, I think if it had been done like it should have been, we wouldn't be sitting in the position we're in now. But I still think GMS is a beautiful school and can be saved.
Okay, so that answers that. So we are now to you.
My question is that the land
Sorry,
purchase.
name and
Diane
address.
Plansky, 144 Talent Road. The land purchase warrant article doesn't match up with the purchase and sale agreement, and I'm wondering why in this lapsing thing until 2029, that's really not in the purchase and sale. The purchase and sale says that we can have it this year and next year, and then it goes back to the trust, which I understand is in flux. There's not all members of the trust may be 100% on board with this decision. So should we buy it now? Should we take out that non-lapsing? If it's bought, is it something that the school could write in there that if they don't get GMS, that they return it to the town, which in turn could gift it back to them? So that the school can't sell the property for whatever they want it for either. I want it to be done at the town and the conservation level if the school is not voted in. But I don't think that, she's 84 years old, saying that it will be 2029 before we make a decision on this property, because it may take that long to get a school agreed upon. I don't think that's right, and it's not what the purchase and sale agreement says. Am I wrong?
It's a great question. Who wants to answer that?
I guess I do. So you are correct. The purchase and sales is for 2 years, and that number comes from state law for the Department of Revenue, giving you the 5 years to do it. So if after 2 years it hasn't been decided to purchase the land, we would have to renegotiate with the seller, and at that point, the land could go up in price, down in price, most likely not, or stay the same, or she might not decide to sell it. So there is a difference in the numbers. The number shown up there is coming from what's kind of required through DRA, Department of Revenue.
The 2029?
The
Even though it doesn't match the purchase and sale agreement that you've entered in as another legal contract. So there, you've made a mistake on one side or the other, again?
I wouldn't say there's a mistake, but I do appreciate that you pointed that out, because I don't think it's bad that people know that it's 2 years purchase and sales, and it's a 5-year from the Department of Revenue. So, but they don't match up. So
Right,
again,
and the purchase and sale is not held to the 2029.
Purchase and sales after 2 years.
Yeah, so if after 2 years.
Which is 2025.
Yep, so if this got passed, and after 2 years, the bond for the school didn't get passed, and the seller decided not to renegotiate, it would go back to the seller. The money would go back to the seller. It would follow I'm sorry, it would go back, so. The property would go back. The property would go back to, yeah, I'm sorry.
But the property would
Thank you
go
for that.
back to the
The property
seller.
would go back to the seller, and the
In
money
2025.
would go back to the taxpayers.
In
Yeah, 'cause-
2025.
Yeah, no money's going to change hands until there is a passed bond for an elementary school.
Why do we have to wait till 2029? Why can't you say 2025?
So again, it's just coming from
I
Department
wanna
of
know
Revenue.
before I bother.
Department of Revenue and what their statute of 5 years.
Okay, we need to move on. You can get to the back of the line and ask again. John, you're actually next. Okay, go ahead.
Matt Shoemaker, 20 Greenwich Road. Just to clarify what Diane was saying, I think the reason why, if I'm understanding correctly, the reason why you have 2029 is it allows the parties to continue to negotiate in good faith if it doesn't get approved within 2 years.
Correct.
So we don't have to come back and deal with this. You could still just deal at a transaction level with the seller. Right. I just would like to point out, I understand what people are saying about, maybe it makes sense to delay something like this. We're looking at a $750,000 piece of land for $500,000. Naming rights are a wonderful, beautiful thing. I don't know how many of you would hand someone, $250,000 to name something, but that's what this seller's doing. I think that this is being done more so out of goodwill, wanting to see the town go in the right direction. One of the board members made a comment about wanting to see the elementary school renovated. I think that that is a really painful comment to hear you make, because to me it suggests that you have not followed any of the discussion that's gone on about the existing sites. There are huge issues with the existing sites which are problematic for renovating that. I think that's a sort of inappropriate thing to be making here, because it's not even really, if you look at it, a realistic consideration. We have an opportunity to get a piece of land that's across the street from a police station, which in 2022 seems like it makes a lot of sense, given that every week someone else's school is getting shot up. So, I think we have a wonderful opportunity here, and I think that people should really consider that, especially that we're getting it at a very good discount for naming rights.
You have the floor.
Yeah, John Latcher, 10 McElwain Drive. I'm just wondering, what are the contingencies to name it after her daughter? Is there any other contingencies to this that we should know about?
Not that I'm aware of, no. And
Can you come up to the microphone, sir, so people can hear you at home?
Go to the microphone, that's what he's asking.
Thank you.
standard land contingencies, naming rights.
Standard land contingencies on making sure that the property's suitable for completing a school on it.
So the purchasing agreement is also, can be found online. So it's been online for a little while now. So if people want to kind of read into more, that you can go online, Reimagining GMS online.
Has there been any perk testings done on this particular land? You want the people to buy it. Has there any tests that came back? Have you done any tests, or you just done a walkthrough?
What's the test?
I mean, there might be oil under the ground, I don't know.
I wish.
So at this point, again, as we try to respect the taxpayers' dollars, we haven't spent a lot of money on the test yet. We've done a fatal flaw of it, and that what that's done is it's mapped out kind of where you have buildable land compared to not buildable land. But we would, if this passes, we would continue to do more tests on it before we went back and fully purchase it as well. So,
Well,
but again,
yeah, I want to interrupt you, go ahead.
no, so just again, we would want to take steps into it with your money.
So you want me to take a chance, I guess, on this? That's the way I feel as a taxpayer. We're taking a chance. We don't know what's in the ground there. So until that testing comes back, I think that we can support it then. But we can't support a vacant piece of land that we don't know what's underneath the ground. At least I can't anyway. Anybody that purchases a piece of land obviously has this testing done prior to purchasing it. I never seen anybody purchase a piece of land for almost $500,000 completely blind.
That's what we'd call a standard contingency that's in the purchase and sale agreement, that gives the buyer, the district, the right, prior to closing on this, to complete a variety of tests, including ledge, hazardous materials, anything that's unsatisfactory to the district. If the approval of the warrant article goes through, then the district would spend the money on doing that before it would ever close on the property.
I just have one last thing. As far as renovations is concerned, second on the list that you talked about where Litchfield finishes 5th, as far as building aid is concerned. The schools on the second, they're renovating schools that were built in the 1800s, all right? 1800s. Now, the superintendent has told us on many occasions that the state will not support renovations to Griffin Memorial School. But I just told you that they're doing renovations on schools in the 1800s. And they're putting them
All right,
in.
we're really stretching the purchase of a piece of property by talking about
we're
fixing
purchasing,
other schools.
excuse me, Mr. Moderator, point of order. We're purchasing this land because we're not renovating the other school, is that correct?
I guess that could be an argument.
Right.
But this isn't
So
supposed to be
I should
rolling
able to
discussion.
I should still be able to speak about it because it is connected
Well,
to that.
then you need to get to the back of the line
All
because
right,
we have
just tell
somebody
me to
else
get back in
again.
the line again. Thank you. Thank you.
That gentleman was first.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. William Zayas, 27 Weatherstone Road. Thank you all for all of your work that you're doing. I know this isn't easy, but I just want to bring up a few things that people probably don't know about GMS. There was a great video that Dan put out just highlighting some things, but just from an insider's perspective, I don't work there, but I know people that do, and it's really tough to know that students and people are trying to teach and learn in this environment. The oil tank is floating and requires a concrete slab to keep it down. So you want to talk about reusing that existing site, it just doesn't seem very feasible. Dan made it very clear of the concern of the grinders for the septic system. When you look at the overall building space that is used there, about 12.5% of the classrooms aren't even being used because it's in a building that's deemed not usable, right? So let's use a building that's not usable, let's renovate. Sounds like a good idea. The HVA system needs repairs and is likely inadequate. Dehumidifiers are in the classrooms in the warm months and still housed in the classrooms when they're not in use. So we have lots of use and lots of space. Let's go ahead and stick some dehumidifiers in the room too. It just doesn't make sense. In the winter, there are space heaters in the rooms just to help keep it warm. On the warm days, it smells particularly great there across the street with the farm. In the winters, if the teachers are the only ones in the room, they have to give up their space heater to give them to a room that has a classroom with kids, right? So they then have to wear their winter coats inside, and it's about 62 degrees. Seems like a good teaching and working environment. On top of that, kids are bringing blankets into school just to stay warm. My kid being one of them. So there's no heat in the staff bathrooms. Let's see. The youngest are being taught in portables that pose a significant disadvantage when it's snowing, and they are also being heated from the underneath as well. The snow leaks, the school leaks when there's snow on the roof. There's a lot of inadequate educational environments. Students requiring one-on-one attention from the district or federal programs are being pulled and taught in break rooms, hallways, and in the stage on the gym. This is a terrible environment for a student that has a hard time paying attention, and they then must be forced to be taught in a hallway outside of a bathroom. It's just not good. It's not conducive, and nobody should ever have to learn in that. They're regularly conducting Alice drills, right? That's normal now. Active shooters, for those that are not familiar. Cell phone service is not good in the building, right? So it's hard to communicate. My wife teaches in one of those hallways, right? She's cut off from communication. She's dependent upon another teacher coming out of their classroom in an active shooter situation to let her know that there's an active threat and how to get out. It's really just not conducive. They're significantly underpaid compared to local. We're losing people left and right. You want to say that it's just because there's lack of enrollment? Guys, it's probably because people don't think that the schools are adequate. We need to continue to move forward. You guys are doing great work. I commend you. Change is inevitable, folks. It's the only constant in life. We need to change the schools. Thank you.
Scott McDonald, 46 Natticook Ave. My son is a graduating senior this year. I do not have a dog in this fight anymore as far as a child in the school. What I think of when I first moved into this town many years ago is something we can't renovate our way out of. And that is, it looks to be about 100 feet away from Route 3A. And that just sticks in my head ever since I moved into the town. Why a town that is so rural has a school that close to a major highway that I cannot believe a kid has not been hit yet. And that, to me, is the number one thing why I would like to see that school moved away from where it is right now.
Okay. You're next.
Member Flint, address is 123 Hillcrest. Again, just to reiterate everything the last two people said, it's a Band-Aid upon a Band-Aid upon a Band-Aid upon a Band-Aid. It needs to be redone. This is the gateway to make that happen. Also, on a personal note, I'm so grateful that her mother said to name it after Robin. So.
Mr. Lashley, you are next.
Thank you. In closing, I'm going to go sit
Can you
down.
please, I know this is redundant,
Yeah.
name and address.
I think Griffin can't be transformed into a vibrant, lively, efficient place of learning. You just have to give it a chance. You haven't given it a chance. Just give it a chance. Thank you very much.
Kathleen Follows, 8 Mike Lane. I just want to refer to his question about Dr. Jetty saying that the state will not provide aid for renovating on Griffin land. My understanding is that was back when Bo Schlichter was president and principal, and I think he was president of town, right? And I think Cutler might have even been the superintendent at the time, that the state came forward and said, Griffin, we will not put money towards Griffin to renovate it because there's so much damage there. And because the water table was so high, they felt that it was throwing bad, what is the saying? Good money after a bad situation or whatever. So I don't think that is anything new. That is something that, I don't know, 13 years ago, the state said. So I think that is part of why we're looking at purchasing new land, because we cannot get that state aid on the existing land. The other point that I want to say is full disclosure, I work in Griffin. My kids went through Griffin, like Scott. My last one's graduating. I no longer have a dog in this fight. But I can tell you, my room alone had $6,000 in damage from mold last summer because of the conditions of Griffin, and that's not counting the bill that came from ServPro to go through and make sure the mold didn't grow back. So when you talk about that it is a cute little building, it is cute, and that it can be renovated, when you have year after year the mold coming back, the ceiling is leaking, the toilets have to be flushed twice to get them to flush. I mean, the list is forever. We could be here another 2 hours discussing it, but that adds up a lot. And I think that we've considered renovating for a really long time. I think we have given it a chance, and it's not doable.
Pete Stone, 15 Carlisle Drive. My question is, are we advocating for things that have already been discussed in other board meetings, or are we supposed to be focused on the Article 2 questions?
That's what we're supposed to be doing.
Just saying.
Hi, I normally sit in the back. Oh, sorry, Dan Mitchell, principal at Griffin Memorial School. I normally sit in the back quietly, but one comment finally after 12 years of attending these 4 minutes of the microphone, and that's, we just need to give Griffin Memorial a chance. Currently, our preschool is in a room that was designed for a science lab, middle school science lab. For the last week and a half, my office has been used as a special ed space. Our cafeteria, in case it was brought up, the corner is actually 63 feet, because I measured it, from a major school highway. If you look at our social media, you're going to see students working in hallways. You're going to see children on Chromebooks in hallways, in closets. You're going to see children playing, and then 2 hours later, that's where the buses are, in what can best be described as an organized cluster, picking them up to move. Last week, when we had frigid temperatures, we needed police detail so that we could effectively and safely get students to their cars without exposing them to the elements so they could come from the front door. We are giving it a chance, and we are creative each and every day. But there are many problems that we use every ounce of creativity to solve. Every minute that we could be putting into instruction, but we're using it for resources and facilities. We have given it a chance. We give it a chance. And on Monday morning at 7:30, we will continue to give it a chance. Thank you so much.
Mr. Moderator, again, we're talking about the land purchase. Thank you for your input about a new school, but we are talking about taking the first step to a new GMS, or.
It was very
Marvin Riley.
loosely connected.
Yeah, it is. I totally get it.
Mr. Spencer? Mr. Spencer?
I'm really not trying to call the question. If I understand correctly, this warrant article is different from what the Budget Committee voted on?
Yes.
Then is the Budget Committee going to meet after the
Yeah,
meeting?
yeah, we are going to
Should we
revote
vote?
this article as well as a couple others after this, yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You should be good.
Thank you, Mr. Spencer.
If there is no further discussion about warrant Article 2, last question?
John Latcher, 10 McElwain Drive. I'd just like to know, is the land suitable to build on as far as the soil is concerned?
Didn't they already answer that when they said they were going to have the clause for testing after they purchased it?
All right.
That was the answer they said earlier.
Just asking a question. Thank you very much.
Yep.
And I'm glad that you allowed the principal to elaborate more than you did me. So thank you very much.
Actually, you did it 3 times, so.
Tara Coakley, 2 Waterview Circle. I'd like to call the question. We're going in circles now.
Thank you very much. I have a motion to call the question. Do I have a second? Second. Many seconds. By raise of hands, please approve the call of the question. Thank you. It's overwhelming. You will see Article 2 as written on the ballot. We are now on to Article 3. Shall the Litchfield School District vote to raise and appropriate
Mr.
50%
Moderator?
of the fund balance up to a sum of $125,000 to be added to the Building Maintenance Capital Reserve Fund established in 2005 for the purpose of funding school capital improvements, building maintenance, and repairs to the Litchfield School District, with said funds to come from the June 30th unassigned fund balance available for transfer on July 1 of this year, with no additional amount to be raised from taxation. On this article, we have Ms. Christina Harrison.
Hi, thank you. First, is it too late to make a motion to restrict reconsideration on Article 2?
We are now into this article.
All right, thank you.
No, we're in this article. Go ahead.
Okay, I'm here to discuss Articles 3 and 4, which are both very similar. Voter approval of Article 3 would allocate a portion of year-end funds to replenish the Building Maintenance Capital Reserve Fund. This reserve fund was established in 2005 as a rainy day fund should the need for unplanned repairs and maintenance on our school facilities should arise. Due to the FY22 overspend in the Capital Projects Fund, the school board voted in September of '22 to withdraw $254,292 to close out FY22. The amount in the Building Maintenance Capital Reserve is currently $105,180.32. If this article is approved, a portion of any remaining funds, should there be any, at the end of FY23 would be used to replenish that reserve fund up to $125,000. This article does not raise and appropriate funds, but uses funds that are already raised and appropriated in this year's approved budget. The board recommends this Article 500. In the discussion at September 19th and thereafter, the board strongly agrees, and we agree with many of the taxpayers that it is, given our aging facilities, as discussed with Article 2, it is imperative that we replenish these funds as soon as possible. These would go for, as I said, any unplanned repairs or maintenance. Voter approval of Article 4, which is very similar, would seek to replenish a portion of any remaining end-of-year funds into the Capital Improvements Expendable Trust Fund.
So we're on Article 3, correct?
Yeah, but they're the same. Can I
No,
just?
we have to do them
All right,
separate.
I'm
Sorry.
All right.
Questions or comments about Article 3?
I know. Yeah.
I just had a quick comment. Kate Stevens, I'm a Budget Committee member. I did want to say that originally I had voted against this, recommending this article. And the reason for it is because I'd like to see the maintenance funds and the capital improvement trust funds separated. But as it stands, if this article, or if this account is not replenished, then there may not be funds for maintenance emergencies. And it would not be fiscally responsible to leave that up to chance. So because of this, I plan to vote to recommend this article when the Budget Committee revotes after this deliberative session. Thank you.
Any questions about Article 3? Seeing none. You will see Article 3 on the ballot as written. We're now on to Article 4. Article 4 says, shall the Litchfield School District vote to raise and appropriate 40% of the fund balance up to the sum of $125,000 to be added to the capital improvements expendable trust fund established in 2020 for the purpose of funding and studying, planning, and cost of new construction or renovation of existing facilities in the Litchfield School District, with said funds to come from the June 30th unassigned fund balance available for transfer on July 1 of this year, with no additional amount to be raised from taxation. This amount is consistent with the capital plan adopted by the town of Litchfield in September of 2020. On this article, we have Ms. Christina Harrison.
Well, once again. Article 4 is very similar to Article 3, with the exception that any end-of-year funds up to 40%, up to the amount of $125,000 would be deposited into the Capital Improvement Expendable Trust Fund. Back in September, because of the overspend in FY22 in the projects fund, the school board withdrew $619,625 to close out FY22. This left a balance of $125,000, roughly $125,000. Additional funds would be used to fund the planning, the study planning and construction costs of, what does it say? Sorry. New construction or renovation of our school facilities. In our collective school board mind, this fund has been the quote-unquote GMS fund as opposed to the rainy day fund. So in order to continue with the work the progress that we've been making, the additional funds would be used to forward that progress even further.
Questions or comments on Article 4?
Ronald Lance, 15 Riverview Circle. We are in February, and you're proposing that anything that's available June 30 of this year go into Article 4 or 5. My question is, given where we are reasonably close to June 30th, what is your projection of surpluses at this point?
I don't have that number in front of me right now. At this point, we are not projecting a large amount to be available at the end of the year to be deposited into these funds. Again, it would be, we've had a very tight year with raises in energy costs and overspends from last year, so we don't have that number at this time. What's that? Right. So it would be 40% of whatever is left up to $125,000. As Article 3 would be 50% of whatever, if there's anything left up to $125,000.
Further questions on Article 4? Seeing none. Article 4 will be on the ballot as written.
Can I make a motion to restrict reconsideration of Articles 3 and 4?
We have a motion. You want to do 2 as well?
And 2?
We have a motion on the floor to restrict reconsideration of Article 2, Article 3, and Article 4. Do I have a second? Second. Motion and a second. Raise of hands. All those vote? All those say no? The yeses have it. No further consideration will be made of the prior articles. We are now on Article 5. Shall the school district establish a reserve fund under the provisions of RSA 31:1-C called the Employee Benefits Reserve Fund for the purpose of funding the payment of negotiated employee benefits, including but not limited to health insurance reimbursement, changes in coverages or policies chosen by employees, severance benefits, and such other benefits as are from time to time negotiated and become contractually obligations of the district. And further, to raise and appropriate 10% of the fund balance up to $100,000 to be placed in this fund, with said funds to come from the June 30th fund balance available for transfer on July 1, and further, to name the school board as agent to expend from this fund. On this article, we have school board member Andrew Cutter.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. One of the things we always try to do when we budget and plan is to avoid the peaks and valleys in the budgeting process. One of the areas where we consistently see that type of change and fluctuation, which directly impacts the operating budget as presented earlier today, is under severance, is under employees changing health insurance plans from a single to a family plan, as an example. This particular article allows for a separate account for us to manage those types of changes that happen. It seems like literally hours ago, Chairman Sun was up here presenting Article 1, and in doing so, he mentioned there was one severance in the budget for this current year of $31,300. Well, that's a lot of money, right? And that allows us, having this type of article and account allows us to have the payments set aside for those types of scenarios without actually hitting the operating budget. Therefore, the ask. Thank you, Mr. Moderator.
With that, do we have any questions or comments on Article 5? I don't see any. With that being said, you will see Article 5 on the ballot as written. So with that, we have completed all our warrant articles for today's deliberative session. Please remember that voting on these articles will occur March 14th, 2023, at 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. down at the CHS gym. Is there any other business to come before this meeting? Hearing none. This is, so from the chief, we have a report about the fire that happened in town. And it says, no injuries to our people. They did a great job stopping the fire from spreading, protecting the house next door from the high winds and falling objects of fire. That's the update from the fire chief. All right, so please remember to turn in your ballot sheets at the back of the room or at the front of the room. Hearing no requests for further business at this time, I will accept a motion to adjourn the meeting.
So made.
Do I have a second? Second. All those in favor, please say yes. Yes. All those opposed, please say no. This meeting is now closed at 1:05. I would like to thank you all for coming today. Have a good day. Gee, thanks.